This is the latest version of the Go Light Pinnacle. Now, I've used the previous versions on 3 TGO challenges with at least as much weight as I'll carry at any time on this walk, so I know that this pack, you know, is comfortable enough, will carry the load. Also, being made of Dyneema, I know that it's tough, and there will be some bushwhacking when I'm doing cross-country sections. So I'm afraid one of the ultralight packs, you know, made from sil nylon, probably wouldn't survive. This one, I expect to do so. It's a big pack, but that means that when I'm carrying, which I may do, a week's worth of food, I've got plenty of space for it. And it does shut down fairly small when you haven't got that much stuff in it. Footwear is also based on what I've used on the TGO challenge, which are the Innovate Terox. I must admit, with my old pair, these look amazingly new and smart. I'd forgotten they even looked like this, mine are so battered. But I found these great on the TGO challenge. The terrain will mostly be less severe on the Pacific Northwest Trail, so they should do fine. They're the most comfortable backpacking footwear I've ever used. An interesting item I'm taking, it's like a plastic tube, but in fact it's called the Caldera Cone Titrite Inferno, which is a bit of a mouthful of a name. What it is, it's the Caldera Cone Meths stove, which I really like because it's like an ultralight transier. It provides you with a windscreen, pot support, and the stove sits inside it. You don't need any extras at all. But it's also got an insert to turn it into a wood burning stove, which is like an inverted Caldera cone that fits inside. And because I'll be camping in forests quite a bit of the time, I will be able to use wood as a fuel, which will cut down on the amount I have to carry. You have to have a specific pan to fit the Caldera cone. That's really its own disadvantage. You can't put any pan you like in it, it has to fit in the top. And for the pan, I'm taking a 20-year-old Avenue titanium 0.9 litre pan, which has proved immensely tough because it's been on every trip, just about every long trip I've done in that period of time, and has still survived. And this is it. I think there's one small dent in the bottom, and that's all. And it's very light, and it will fit neatly in the top of the stove. I always take a wind shirt on trips, and I like wind shirts with hoods, and this is the lightest I've discovered, which is a Go Light one. Very simple, but a lot of the time worn over a base layer. You know, that's the only clothing I'm going to need. But it will rain, and in some places, the Cascades, as the name suggests, and particularly the Olympic Mountains, it can rain a lot. This is not like the Arizona Trail, it's not a desert walk, it's not like the High Sierra. So I need a good waterproof, but I also want a lightweight one. So this is the new RAB Demand pull-on, which is probably the lightest event waterproof you can get. And of the different membranes and coatings, I found Event is the most breathable. So this is the one I've decided to take. It's fairly simple, hence to keep the weight down. I've got one pocket, it's got a good wired hood. If I encounter big storms in the mountains, this will be adequate. But it's also small and light to carry, and it will keep me dry in rain in the forests as well. For a tent, I'm taking a 2-part shelter. Go Light don't actually call this a tent. It's really like an old-fashioned ridge tent fly sheet, which is the Shangri-La one. And I can pitch this with trekking poles, and I'll be using pacer poles for that. Most of the time, I hope to use this on its own. However, early part of the time I'm there will still be mosquito season. So for that, I've got a netting inner tent, which clips inside this, so that I have got shelter from mosquitoes when needed. I'll use this as a ground sheet as well when I'm camping on wet ground. That way I don't have to carry the weight of a separate ground sheet. And even the two of these together with all the pegs weigh less than a kilo, so it's very, very light, fairly small packing, and gives a double use, as I say, for the trekking poles. Now for warm wear, and again in the mountains, frosty nights are possible when it's clear. I wouldn't expect temperatures much below -5, but there'll certainly be cold nights and mornings. The ideal for that is a down jacket, and again this is the lightest down jacket that I know of. It's so light it feels like there's nothing there. This is the Montbell ultra light down inner, as it's called. I think it's called the down inner because the fabric is so thin that I think if you wore it with a pack on its own for very long, you'd probably damage it. But then I'll be very surprised if I actually have to walk in this. It's for camp wear, and so I wanted something, I say, that's very small packing, very lightweight, but if it is frosty, it will keep them warm. Most of the time, and if it's cold enough to need to wear something while I'm walking, it'll be a simple 100-weight microfleece top. And this one, Jack Wolfskin Gecko, is the lightest one I've ever had, so that's why I'm taking it. And again, if you want warm wear that lasts a long time, fleece will outlast anything else. This is 10 years old, has been on loads and loads of trips, and is still in excellent condition. Now, for sleeping on long trips I usually take either a foam pad, though these can be, you know, a bit uncomfortable, or a thermarest. But in testing pads for TGO, I discovered a new one that's really impressed me, which is an airbed. It's very light, hence it's flat. This is from Pacific Outdoor Equipment. It's called the Ether Elite, but it has insulation in the torso area, which makes a huge difference to the warmth. I mean, the trouble with a straight airbed, of which there's a few around now, is if it gets down to freezing, they're not really warm enough on their own. But this insulation makes a big difference. So I've been very impressed with this. It's very light, of course, because that insulation on the shell is all there is, and it folds up extremely small, and you can roll it up or have it flat and put it in the back of the pack. So that's a new item which I'm hoping will last the whole trip, because I've only actually used it for a few nights so far. I'm also doing something different with sleeping bags, because it's not actually a sleeping bag at all. It's a quilt, and this is the Go Light 3-season quilt, which again is very light for the warmth. You can strap it onto the mat if it's really cold, so you don't have cold along the edges, or, which I've discovered I prefer to do, you can leave it open and just spread it over you like a blanket. Now, for cold weather, I would still definitely prefer a mummy bag. There's nothing like snuggling into a mummy bag when it's really cold. But most nights, I'm not expecting the temperature to drop below freezing, and some nights it will be quite warm. And then when I thought of all the nights when actually I never zip up the sleeping bag, I just spread it over me, I thought, well, why not have a quilt and not bother with the zip at all? But this is the one thing where I don't know yet how I'll feel about it. I might finish the trip thinking, why didn't I bring a sleeping bag? I don't like quilts. Or I might finish it thinking, well, I've never used a quilt before, they're brilliant. So it'll be interesting to find out with this. And finally, I'm taking a Tilly hat. I've used these for 20 years. This is a new one because I've had to retire my old one. I'm afraid that it's got a bit too ragged and I don't think it'll survive a long trip. But it's great because in the forest, I'll use it instead of a jacket hood to keep off rain. It's just about waterproof enough for that. And in all the sunny weather that I'm hoping to have, it gives you good protection all round from the sun. And I find Tilly hats really comfortable. Even if they look silly, as some people think.